here, so I appreciate the drive and everybody showing up. I was supposed to have a co-partner, but you can see I'm solo here today, so we'll see. This might be another interesting way for them to see if I'm fit for the position. I'll throw you into a room of folks and see what happens when you come out. No, I'm teasing. She actually got sick, so we had our head of the legal counsel that had been doing these regulation listening sessions, and she usually comes and does all the note taking, so I'll be doing that this morning. So really, this is a listening session, so I'm not going to be doing a lot of talking. I really just want to hear from you on what you want to see with these regulations. The current regulations, as most of us agree 100%, are really outdated, and they need a lot of work. And so we sat down with the group and thought, these are the main areas that seem to be represented in them, and that was the email that I sent out. So we're basically wanting feedback on the idea of disease management. What did I put in my email specifically? Disease prevention and management. So if anybody's got any comments that are in here or things we need to add to these, comments can be a variety of things. If you want to edit the way it's certain, if it is something that you want to change, you can send that to me in writing. If you want to review the whole thing, if you just want to make comments, if you want to do both, I'll try to type as fast as I can to get everybody's information. So, and then high registration, mandatory or voluntary. Should there be a fee associated with it? Do you want to have some sort of hive mapping voluntary program added into this? So these are regulations. They will be enforceable. They're not law, but they complement the law. So the goal with the regulations is to be a support system to the current laws. And for us to change laws is a little bit harder, especially for our department. Much easier for you all to do it, but yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Is there a new draft of the regulations?
There's no new draft. No. So all we did is
there any kind of something that is going to be replacing what we see here?
Well, whatever you all come up with. Yeah. So
there's no intention on your side to change any of these?
So what we did is, obviously there's certain things like Wayne was showing me earlier, like genus and species names that are wrong. The definitions need to be updated because some of these aren't even words that are in here, which is kind of interesting.
So does MDAR have a draft that they want to replace with what's in place at this time?
What we did is we have these sections. So these that I sent out an email.
The 3 sections in the email?
Yeah, the 3 emails. So that's what we would like to see in the regulations.
Okay.
Some version of those sections.
Okay, I gotcha.
We don't, besides
because generally, I'm sorry, because I work for government, so I know that when you have a listening session, we usually have the proposed change alongside, and I was looking for it, and it's like, where is it?
No, if we had something where I would send it out and said, hey, you guys, here's what we're thinking, and you said, oh, God, no, or, oh, yeah, that's great. So, we read this and said, oh, this really needs to be updated, and let's get a listening session, because before we make a draft, what if we make a draft and you all are like, I don't even want high registration, I don't even want these things, it'd be a waste of our time to update it. So we went through and basically I just updated like definitions and stuff because that was easy. But
Can you just, before we start, give us a sense of what the process is going to be?
Okay.
Originally, this all came about from Executive Order 562.
Yes.
But 562 requires that these regs disappear at the end of March.
Yeah.
Is that still going to happen, or has MDAR certified to the Division of Finance that these regs need to stay? Are we going to have no regs on April 1st at this point?
Well, if Tara was here, she could answer this, but she has apparently pushed back from EEA and said we need more time. So I think we're exempt for now.
All right.
We're going to have more time.
Okay, so then we're going to go off on our own process, but what's the next step going to be after this meeting?
So after this meeting, what I would like to do is capture all of your comments, put them in these 3 sub areas, send it out, and say this is sort of where we are. Was everyone's comments captured? And then also give people an opportunity to send comments in. So say if you're sitting here and you don't want to say anything out loud, you want to send it to me in an email, that's great. I've actually got a handful of emails from people that could not attend. So we want to make sure we include those comments. And then from there, if you all are like, you know what, this is not really where we wanted this to go, we could have another session, or we could say, oh, it looks really great, I think we're good to go. And then we would take this through, and it has to go to a public hearing, it has to go through all these changes.
Right, so, right, and that was going to be my next question. What is going to be the role of this group going forward in developing new regulations? After this listening session, are you planning to have any more meetings of this group, or is the next step going to be proposed regulations that are out for public comment and hearing?
Yeah. I think it depends on how it goes today, right? So if everybody gets a chance to feel, if we're in here for 3 hours and we're still not going anywhere, we say, hey, we might need to have another meeting, you know. And also, I would love to be able to convene with Tara because she's done these a million times. This is my first one, so you know, I'm sort of a proxy in the moment kind of. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Does the department have an overall time frame for this process?
So let me give you let me backtrack you. These were actually just going to go away. So before I came in, they said, "Oh, this looks really outdated. We'll just get rid of them." So they weren't even thinking about doing anything with these regulations. And I said, "Whoa, there's some potentially good stuff in here, or not. We should ask the beekeepers what they want." So this was not on their radar to do anything with it. They were either going to not touch it or say that they basically were going to get rid of them because they were dated, which there is some dated information. So if that's the case, we sort of are flying, as far as I understand, on our own time, on our own radar, because we kind of came in this race really late. They've been reviewing regulations for months, and so this was the very tail end of the process.
They being who?
So all the different regulations. So for instance, for
But who was they that said that they weren't even going to do anything with the apiary?
Well, they didn't have anyone. They didn't have anybody in the position. So it wasn't. So the regulations have went out to the different groups. So for instance, dairy got their regulations. The people in animal health got their regulations, and so there was no apiary, group to do this with. So they were either going to say we don't have a group, so we're not going to mess with them, or we're just going to get rid of them because they're dated. So that was sort of where they were at before we came in.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You have the benefit of dealing with the Middlesex County legal team here.
I know, it's great. It's like, especially because I don't have a legal person with me, so it's great. Yeah.
Legal department. Two other things I want to talk about, mention on the procedure. One is if the regs all go away, these regs track the statute. So even if you throw the regs out the window today, Ken will still be out doing the inspection. You guys will still be doing the inspection because that's what the statute says.
That's in the
and
law.
that'll still be there.
So that's there. Yeah.
Right, so they're very close. So even if you don't have the regs, you don't lose your apiary inspection program.
Yeah.
And the other thing that people should be aware of is making its way through the legislature, and some of us have been dealing with this, is there are 3 House B bills which have been transmogrified into one. And the current draft has a committee set up to study current regulations in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah.
What we do today may be supplanted if this thing passes by some committee down the line.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely potential for it. But I think that committee will hopefully, I'm hoping, if it goes through, right, the committee should be representative of what the needs are. So if they feel confident that these regulations are about beekeepers. It's about keeping bees. And so if they feel confident that we did a good job of reviewing these, hopefully they'll suffice. But at this point, it's really hard to know because it hasn't passed or not passed, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so I don't want people to get discouraged. If we work really hard in here, I don't want you to think like we're wasting our time because this may not pass, or if it does, it may pass in some other version. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and it would be a very different, yeah.
Yeah, so the other thing I just want to really quick mention, we did release the pollinator plan draft yesterday. There's a meeting on Monday to discuss that, so if you have some really passionate things you want to say, great. I just ask that you hold those until Monday because the Ag Commissioner will hopefully be right here, and that's another group and another voice that you listening here that you want to have. So I really appreciate, everybody just kind of keeping that. And
could I ask you a little question about it?
Yeah, sure.
Who drafted it?
So the pollinator plan was drafted in our department, and so we took the plans that came in and we used those plans as a guideline, and then we actually compared that with the state level. So all the states have released plans. We literally printed them out and went section by section on each page and said, okay, what are other states doing? How are they including information? And then we compared that on the same, it was a huge table, with what the national guidelines were and what they needed to have in them. So we sort of had to beef up like the assessment piece because that was something that was in the national guidelines. So, but the idea was to sort of, that's the other piece that I think is really confusing is they are guidelines. They're best management practices. So there's no regulation around this document, but we'll definitely get into that on Monday. So that'll be great for everyone. So if you're involved in that group, fantastic, come, and I think it'll be a really awesome opportunity to have conversations around that document. So, yeah. All right.